Welcome to Stoic Way with Alaric. There are moments when you wish you just stayed silent, right? One careless remark, a knee-jerk reaction, and the fallout isn't just awkwardness. Sometimes it costs you trust, relationships, even opportunities. In today's world, where everyone's racing to be heard, intentional silence is a rare kind of power. But knowing when to hold your tongue and making your words count takes more than willpower. It takes self-mastery, a core Stoic concept. That's why Stoic philosophy has endured for thousands of years. It's not an escape route for the weak. It's a compass for those who want to stay grounded in chaos, live with discipline, strength, and depth. Stoicism teaches you to manage your emotions, focus on what you can control, and most importantly, to know when to speak and when to stay quiet. If you've ever felt like your words betrayed you, this video is for you. Watch till the end, and you'll walk away with 7 tools to make your words an asset, not a burden. We're starting right now with the first principle. Listen more. Speak less. Have you ever been in a conversation where the other person cut you off with, "Oh yeah, I know that already," or shared something important, only to be met with a distracted chuckle before they turned the spotlight back on themselves? In today's world, it seems speaking is far easier than listening. Scroll through social media and you'll see millions shouting, "Listen to me." Yet, few are willing to truly be silent and hear someone else. In Stoicism, listening isn't passive. It's a sign of strength, of a mind that can resist the urge to perform, choosing instead the right moment to act. Like a seasoned swordsman, they don't swing wildly. They wait, they watch, and they move only when it counts. The wise don't use words to fill silence. They use silence to understand others more deeply. Alaric wants to share a story because it shows how someone's quiet presence can shift everything without saying a word. There's a rideshare driver in Manhattan named Kale. He's quiet, not big on small talk. One day, a woman gets into his car, exhausted, eyes red. For the next 40 minutes, Kale says nothing but "good morning." He gently places a water bottle in the front cup holder, turns off the radio, and glances in the rearview mirror now and then, as if to make sure she's okay. When they arrive, she steps out and leaves behind a hastily folded note. "I just lost my father. Thank you for letting me sit in silence. This ride was the kindest thing I've experienced all week." Kale didn't say a word, but somehow he said exactly what needed to be said. "I'm here, and I understand." This is a perfect demonstration of Epictetus's philosophy. Nature gave us one tongue and 2 ears, so we could hear twice as much as we speak. Listening isn't just sitting quietly while someone talks. It's an active choice, like asking a thoughtful follow-up. "Do you mean?" Or letting someone's silence be, instead of rushing to fill it with empty chatter. Good listeners don't jump in with advice. They don't pretend to understand. They ask. They don't rush to conclusions. They wait. In meetings, they're the quietest, but have the clearest grasp of the room. In relationships, they're the ones everyone turns to when it really matters. A great salesperson doesn't just pitch. They ask the right questions. A great doctor doesn't just prescribe. They hear the fear behind the symptoms. And a great friend isn't the one with all the answers. It's the one who can sit beside you in silence and make you feel less alone. Here's a simple way to train your listening. For the next week, in every conversation, count how many questions you ask versus how many opinions you give. If you're asking twice as often as you're speaking, you're on the right path. Try letting the other person speak 70% of the time. The more you listen, the more you'll realize people don't need to be fixed. They need to feel understood. And here's something to be ready for. The better you get at listening, the less you'll need to talk. Because once you understand clearly, there's no need to guess. Once you see the big picture, you stop fighting over the small parts. The most influential people rarely say much. They just say what matters. What's surprising is that in those moments when you're truly listening to someone else, you start to understand yourself. You notice your own impatience, the urge to interrupt, the mental script waiting for your turn to say, "Let me tell you my story." Becoming aware of that, that's a sign of real growth. You no longer need to win the conversation. You just want to connect. Epictetus once reminded us, nature gave us one tongue and two ears so we could hear twice as much as we speak. Nature doesn't make mistakes. That ratio is a lesson. The question is, are you living in reverse? Because when you begin to tame your words through listening, you'll find the real challenge isn't your mouth. It's your mind. Often, what causes you to say the wrong thing isn't ignorance. It's emotion rising too fast. So how do you control the storm within? What if emotion is the silent manipulator in every conversation you've ever had? Now, Alaric takes you to the biggest challenge in mastering your words. Control your emotions. There's a truth many people only realize after cracks appear in their relationships. Words are never entirely harmless. They're like arrows. Once released, you can't take them back. And the saddest part, most of these arrows are fired not by reason, but by emotion. We get angry, hurt, scared, and we speak. Sometimes just a few seconds of lost control can ruin something beautiful we spent years building. That's why learning to manage your emotions before you speak isn't a luxury. It's a survival skill. Stoicism doesn't ask you to stay silent forever. It simply asks you to stay conscious before you speak. It teaches that true freedom isn't the ability to say whatever you want, but the strength to hold back when you should. And that only happens when you're in control of your emotions. Have you ever been so angry that you wanted to shout, insult someone? only to regret every word just minutes later? Or let a secret slip just to prove a point, only to lose someone's trust for good? These moments aren't rare. They happen every day. At home, at work, even in anonymous comments on social media. Alaric wants to tell you a story, and you should listen, because it shows just how much emotion can take over your words and your life. Thomas, a man from Chicago, was a longtime manager at a tech company. His co-workers admired his calm nature. But one day, in a tense meeting, his boss harshly criticized him in front of everyone. Thomas snapped. He interrupted, raised his voice, and accused his boss of being unfair. Said the team didn't respect him. The room fell silent. That same afternoon, Thomas was removed from his managerial role. The irony. Thomas wasn't wrong in how he felt, but he lost because of how he reacted. If he had just taken 3 seconds to breathe, everything might have turned out differently. A deep breath can be the wall between a wise response and a reckless reaction. And that's the shift Stoicism wants us to practice every day. Don't speak when you're angry. Don't explain when you're hurt. Don't respond when your mind is still storming. Practice deliberate slowing down. Modern neuroscience backs up what the Stoics understood thousands of years ago. When emotions run high, the amygdala in your brain takes over, overpowering the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for reasoning. In other words, when you're angry, you're literally less intelligent. Your brain is temporarily hijacked, and everything you say in that moment doesn't come from the real you. It comes from your emotions. Are you okay with being the spokesperson for your anger? The strange thing is, emotional control doesn't mean suppression. It's actually the art of transformation. One of the most effective techniques is this. Label your emotions with precision. Don't just say, "I'm mad." Tell yourself, "I feel disrespected," or "I feel powerless." Naming your emotion activates your rational brain, giving you just enough space to detach from the emotional wave. Another technique comes from behavioral psychology. If you feel like exploding, sit down and write out what you want to say. But don't send it. Write by hand. It forces your brain to shift from emotional reaction to structured language. Often within minutes, you'll no longer want to say those things at all. Abraham Lincoln used to do this. Whenever he was angry at someone, he'd write a scathing letter, then put it in a drawer, never to be sent. They called it a letter of venting. It wasn't meant to be read by others. It was for him to regain clarity. That's how Lincoln stayed remarkably composed, even during the tensest political storms. You can also choose an anchor, a small action to reset your mind. It could be touching your wrist or exhaling slowly through your mouth. Tiny action, big impact. It's your brain's way of saying, pause, take control. These aren't random tricks. They're your shield, protecting your dignity and your peace. Learning to control your words isn't about silencing yourself forever. It's about knowing when to speak, what to say, and how to say it. Sometimes the greatest power lies not in what we choose to say, but in what we choose not to. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where, because you lost control of your emotions, you said something you deeply regret? If so, share it in the comments. Not to feel ashamed, but so we can all learn to live stronger, calmer, and speak with more purpose. And don't forget to subscribe, so that every day you'll be reminded by Stoic philosophy. To master your emotions is to master yourself. Now, Alaric unveils the third principle, a small but dangerous habit. Most of us fall into saying whatever comes to mind. We call it being honest, keeping it real, or not bottling things up. But the truth is, blurting out every thought isn't honesty. It's a lack of discipline. People with depth aren't those who think less, but those who know how to think enough and say just enough. Think back to your last coffee catch-up with friends. Someone mentioned they were thinking about changing jobs. Before they even finished, someone jumped in. To be honest, switching jobs now is a dumb move. A few more just being real comments followed. And what started as sharing turned into criticism. The vibe shifted. The person went quiet, nodded to end the chat, and maybe, just maybe, they'll never open up to that group again. A valid point, said at the wrong time, in the wrong way, to the wrong person. Might as well be completely wrong. Stoics don't stay silent because they have nothing to say. They stay silent because they understand something simple. Every word has a cost. It could be your energy, your privacy, your relationships. The more you grow, the less you want to speak. Not because you're empty inside, but because you're done cleaning up the mess of careless words. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Wisdom, in many cases, isn't about speaking up to prove you're right. It's about having the strength to stay quiet, to be misunderstood, and still stay calm in your own skin. Alaric wants to tell you a story. It's worth a minute of your time, because somewhere in it lies a lesson we all need at some point in life. Liam was sharp, a smart, quick-thinking guy, working in finance. He had knowledge, logic, and a mind like a whip. In one internal meeting, his boss presented a new idea that wasn't well thought out. Liam was irritated and immediately jumped in to point out every flaw. His words sharp as knives. He wasn't wrong, just too fast, too blunt. His boss didn't react then. But a few weeks later, Liam was quietly removed from a major project. He was confused. The truth. Leadership felt he wasn't a cultural fit. He didn't lose because he lacked ability. He lost because he was right at the wrong time. From that point on, Liam changed. He began writing down his thoughts before meetings, rereading them 10 minutes later, asking himself, am I saying this to contribute or to prove I'm smart? If the answer was the second, he kept quiet. Within months, something shifted. People started paying real attention. When he did speak, his silence became a signal of depth, not hesitation. You can start the same way. It's simple. When a thought pops into your head, don't say it right away. Instead, imagine every word costs money. You'd speak less and mean it more. Give yourself a buffer. Just 3 seconds between thought and speech. In those 3 seconds, ask, this moment, this thing, this person, is it necessary? A small question that can completely change the outcome of a conversation. Ever feel like you're pressuring yourself just by saying too much? Every time you share a plan, an idea, or an emotion, you're putting yourself in a position to defend or prove it. But if you keep even a part of it, just a little, you gain the freedom to pivot, adjust, or even walk away without shame. Not everyone needs to know what you're thinking, and you don't have to speak to prove you exist. The right silence is invisible armor. It shields you from misunderstandings, emotional chaos, and battles that aren't worth fighting. Are you speaking to be heard, or just afraid of being forgotten? Choose your words. Choose your moment. Choose your audience. That's not just communication. It's survival. And before you rush to share your next big idea, remember this. Ideas are like seeds. Speak them too soon, and the wind might carry them away before they ever get a chance to grow. This is a Stoic lesson in protecting what matters most. Now, Alaric unveils the 4th principle, something strange about modern life. Guard your plans. The more people talk about their goals, the less they seem to reach them. They post their plans on social media, telling friends, I'm launching this project. I'm learning that skill. This is the year everything changes. Then a few months pass, and all of it fades away, like an old post no one remembers. Why? Because talk, when unchecked, is the most powerful sedative for action. It tricks you into thinking you're making progress when all you're doing is talking about moving forward. One morning at a cafe, you overhear someone passionately sharing their startup idea. I'm going to open this unique coffee shop. Artsy vibes, books, community-driven brand. Sounds inspiring and right. But 6 months later, you come back to the same cafe. No new coffee shop, The person still at the same table, sipping the same drink, telling a different story. That sounds exactly like the last one. It's not that they're lazy or insincere. They've just fallen into a subtle mental trap. The illusion of progress. Our brains struggle to distinguish between talking about doing something and actually doing it. When you share your plans, you get immediate rewards, admiration, encouragement, nods of approval. It feels like you've already made it halfway, when really, you haven't even started. This is a Stoic lesson in self-discipline. Marcus Aurelius never bragged about living simply. He just lived simply. He didn't preach discipline. He embodied it. That's what made him different. Think about it. If you were a tree, would you rather use your energy to grow real leaves or just shake your branches so people think you're growing? It's time you heard a story you won't forget. Not because it's about some hero or legend, but because it's about someone a lot like you. Liam, 34, was a software developer. He hated his corporate job and always talked about quitting to build his own app. He had plenty of ideas and gave killer presentations. He sketched out detailed plans, told his friends, even built a timeline for development. Everyone was impressed. But month after month, not a single line of code was written. Then one day, a friend said bluntly, "Liam, you're addicted to talking about success, not building it." That hit hard. The next day, Liam deleted all his old posts, stopped sharing, sat down and wrote his first line of code. 3 months of silence, 6 months of no updates. Then one day, his app went live on the App Store. No announcement, just action. No noise, just results. Liam's story forces us to ask, are we doing the work? Or just talking about it? And if you see yourself in this story, that's not failure. That's awakening. Realizing that keeping your plans quiet is how you protect the energy to actually make them real. Look at Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary from Burkina Faso. He never made speeches about living simply. He sold the government's luxury cars, cut his own salary in half, and grew vegetables in the presidential garden. When you stop performing, people start noticing. When you stop announcing, your results speak for themselves. Silence is a form of power. To actually live this out, try one thing. Stop sharing your plans for 30 days. No posts. No humble brags. Every time you feel the urge to talk about what you're going to do, pause and write down one concrete action instead. Not because you don't deserve recognition, but because you deserve a real result, not just a round of applause. Pause here. You've already come halfway. And if you're still reading, that means you're not just interested in philosophy. You're ready to live it. The path to mastering your words is a bold one. It takes persistence, awareness. But the next chapters will give you real strategies, practical, not preachy, to turn Stoicism into a way of life. Walk the whole path. And if you found something valuable here, a quiet like from you is enough. That quiet support can ripple far, just like the Stoic spirit itself. Deep, silent, and full of strength. Now, Alaric reveals the fifth principle, a kind of spiritual suicide that many people commit daily without even realizing it. Talking too much, and to the wrong people. You might think you're connecting, but in reality, you're digging a hole. And every personal disclosure is another shovel of dirt until one day, someone who's not you uses what you said to bury you. Sounds heavy, right? Then let Alaric ask you this. Of all the people you've confided in, how many truly kept quiet out of respect? Not just because they haven't had a chance to use it? Stoicism teaches us to control our words, but few understand it doesn't just mean speaking less. It means choosing the right people to speak to. You don't have to shut yourself off completely, but you do have to be selective. The longer you live, the clearer it becomes. Not everyone deserves access to your internal files. Have you ever sat on a bus, met a stranger, and suddenly found yourself sharing family issues, relationship struggles, or work stress? That sense of they won't judge because they're not involved makes us open up. But exactly because they're not involved, they have no loyalty to what you've said. In a society that runs on information, naivety is one of the easiest things to exploit. Alaric once knew a man named Elias, a personal trainer just starting out. He confided in someone he thought was a close friend about marketing ideas, financial troubles, unpaid debts. The guy listened, nodded, encouraged, and later opened a gym right next door, targeting Elias's exact clientele. Offhand remarks like, "I'm not sure I can keep this going another month," ended up spooking potential investors. Not because Elias was weak, but because he revealed his weak spots too soon to the wrong person. This doesn't just happen to Elias. It happens at work. When you vent to a coworker and notice your boss acting differently. It happens in families, when a confession becomes a tool for manipulation. It happens online, where people pour out their hearts onto keyboards, believing saying it helps. But feeling lighter isn't always the same as being smart. And being too open always carries a cost. So what do? Not go completely silent, but train ourselves to filter. Before you speak, ask, will sharing this make me stronger? Or hand someone else power over me? If you're not sure, keep it in. Everything you say is stored somewhere. In someone's memory, in conversations you won't be part of. Or worse, in a plan that's working against you. Try a simple but powerful rule. The 3-time appearance principle. Someone should show up in your life at least 3 times. In joy, in pain, and in silence, before you share anything below the surface. Everyone's kind when things are good, but someone who stays quiet when there's nothing left to gain, that's who you trust. Want a real-world example? Look at how CEOs guard new product secrets. It's not that they don't trust their teams. It's that they know leaks happen. And the worst leaks come from mouths with no long-term loyalty. Your life is also a work-in-progress product. Don't let someone evaluate the prototype and decide your worth. Discretion can be your last line of defense against a hidden attack. And your true confidant, if you have one, won't need you to say much. They'll see you clearly, even through your silence. The Bible says, "Do not cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet, and turn and tear you in pieces." It's not that you don't have something valuable. It's that not everyone is capable of honoring what you give. So ask yourself, who are you sharing your truth with? And are you sure they'll protect it? Or are they just waiting for a chance to use it? One day you'll realize the person who knows the most about you might not understand you at all. And the one who truly understands you might not need to know every detail. That's when you'll understand. Silence isn't the absence of words. It's the presence of wisdom. But how much silence is enough? And where's the line between quiet wisdom and distant coldness? Now, Alaric unveils the 6th principle, one of the most powerful truths about self-mastery. Silence is power. Silence isn't the absence of words. It's a choice. And that choice comes with a cost, neither glamorous nor easy, but incredibly powerful. Because staying silent, when you have every reason to speak up, takes 10 times more courage than winning any argument. In an era where everyone has a microphone, social media, podcasts, live streams, who dares to stay quiet? If that person is you, maybe you're not reacting to the world. You're owning your place in it. Have you ever been in a situation where someone said something wrong about you, right in front of a crowd? Your gut twists. Blood rushes to your head. Your mouth wants to fire back. But if you've ever held it in, just looked, stayed silent, nodded, and walked away, you know it doesn't feel good, but it hits different. That moment says to the world, I don't need to prove anything. And in that pause, you're not just controlling your words, you're controlling yourself. Marcus Aurelius didn't speak much. His meditations were written to himself. In one rarely quoted line, he wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Don't mimic. Don't retaliate. Don't fall into the trap of reaction. You don't need to speak to strike back. You just need to avoid becoming the reflection of what you despise." This is the core of applying logos in practice. Ever notice how some people say the smartest things, yet nothing sticks? Meanwhile, others just quietly do their work, say nothing, and we remember them forever. Because words are sound waves. Actions are gravity. Sound fades. Gravity doesn't need to be seen. It pulls anyway. There's a side of silence most people avoid. The fear of being misunderstood. We're afraid that if we stay quiet, people will think we're weak, wrong, clueless. But here's the twist. Silence creates a strange kind of power. It forces others to guess. And in that uncertainty, you gain influence. Sure, this all sounds good, but how do you live it? In a world that constantly pushes your buttons? The answer is in the small moments. When the person you love is upset, dragging up every past mistake, can you just take their hand, stay silent, and listen? Instead of defending yourself? When a coworker subtly throws shade in a meeting, can you smile, look at your boss, and simply deliver your point? No more? No less? There's a guy named Elias. He works in design, a field where creativity isn't always rewarded fairly. Once, a coworker stole his idea and pitched it to their boss as his own. Everyone clapped. Elias stayed silent. No pushback. No call-out. A week later, when it was time to execute, the team turned to Elias for the details. Because the idea's core lived in his mind, not theirs. He owned the moment. No words, just actions. From that day, people saw him differently, not just as talented, but as grounded, solid. Silence, when used right, flips the script. People don't listen to you because you're speaking. They listen because they know when you do speak, it matters. And sometimes silence is the medicine you need. When we stop voicing every negative feeling and just sit with them, those feelings start to shrink. It's the same in Zen, Taoism, Buddhism, Wu Wei. Non-action is a deeply intentional act. You don't react, not because you're avoiding, but because you're processing it at a deeper level. So, here's a challenge. Try a day of silence. No arguing, no proving, no vague story posts aimed at someone. Just observe. Track every time you wanted to speak, but didn't. Then, ask yourself at the end of the day, if I had said something, would it have really made things better? Maybe you're not the most eloquent speaker. That's fine. You can still make your words matter by saying less, by speaking only when it counts. Don't let your voice become cheap because you gave it away too often. Silence is power, but only if you're strong enough to hold it. If you've ever held back from saying something and realized it made you stronger, drop strength in silence to mark the moment you stopped reacting like you used to. This directly connects to the Stoic principles of inner control and self-mastery. Now, Alaric unveils the seventh principle, a truth that will change how you approach your goals. Let achievement speak. Most of us share a deeply human instinct, the desire to be recognized. And often, the quickest way to satisfy that urge is to talk about what we plan to do, what we're working on, or what we hope to achieve. We think that by speaking up, others will see us as serious, as someone of value. But the truth is, the more we talk about something, before it actually happens, the more likely we are to lose it. Not because someone sabotages us, but because speaking too early and too much erodes the drive to act. The more we assert ourselves with words, the easier it is to fall into the illusion that we've made progress, when in reality, we haven't even started. Those who live by the Stoic mindset understand this well. Every word costs energy. Every time you share a plan, justify a decision, or try to prove your worth, you're giving away something that should have been reserved for action. They choose to act first, speak later, not because they have nothing to say, but because they know real credibility doesn't come from convincing others. It comes from letting results speak for themselves. In a world that never stops talking, the person who knows when to stay silent commands the most attention. Think back to the last time you told someone you were going to learn a new language, start working out, write a book, or launch a project. What happened after that? If you're like most people, the initial excitement probably faded soon after. Just by saying it out loud, you got a hit of that achievement feeling without doing the work. Your brain took the reward before paying the price. And then things stalled. Not because you're weak, but because you unknowingly traded action for illusion. Purposeful silence isn't avoidance. It's a smart strategy. Like planting a seed. You don't dig it up every day to check its growth. You let it grow in quiet, steadily, and strongly. People are the same. The most meaningful things need protection from rushed judgment and impatient eyes. This is how you practice Stoic self-discipline. When you keep your plans to yourself, you create a safe space for them to grow, free from outside pressure or distortion. Staying silent is also a way to train inner discipline. Not everyone can do it. It's easy to show you're trying, much harder to move forward quietly, without needing validation. But that's exactly what sets you apart. Silence demands that you truly believe in your own process, that you don't need to be seen, understood, or applauded. You just need to know exactly what you're doing and keep doing it. And when the results come, you won't need to say a word. They'll speak for you. That's more than recognition. It's trust. Not because you promised, but because you delivered. No hype, no spotlight, just truth with weight. The kind that makes people pause, take notice, and see you differently. Because you weren't trying to be seen. You made it impossible not to be. This is the pinnacle of letting action speak. A core Stoic principle of internal control. So next time you're tempted to share a plan, pause. Ask yourself, what would happen if I kept this to myself? Am I ready to let the result be the only thing that speaks? If the answer is yes, you're on the right path. Because the one who controls their words is the one who's truly in control. And that's where all real value begins. Now, Alaric takes you to the 8th and final principle, the sharpest weapon of a strong mind: critical thinking. Powerful minds possess a weapon that no one can take away. A sharp, independent spirit that refuses to submit in the fight against the mediocrity of modern life. Lazy thinking, shallow public opinion, and knee-jerk emotional reactions. Critical thinking is the sharpest blade you can forge. But no one is born with it. Critical thinking isn't a gift. It's a battlefield, a daily internal struggle, where you constantly interrogate yourself. Why do I believe this? Who's influencing my thoughts? Are my words shaped by real experience, or just echoes of the crowd? It's an unrelenting showdown between the habitual self and the awake self. And your victory isn't measured by how many people agree with you, but by the quiet clarity that comes each time you refuse to swallow an unexamined opinion. You don't need to control the world, only how you respond to it. But to do that, you have to rethink, think deeper, and think differently. That means when someone says, "Everyone does it," you ask, who's everyone, and why should I be like them? When headlines flood in, you pause and ask, what's missing here? Not just to be contrarian, but to make room in your mind for truth before emotion or noise hijacks it. The irony is, we live in the information age. Yet, most of us have never been taught how to truly think. We consume knowledge like fast food. Fast, easy, and undigested. Then we wonder why we feel anxious, exhausted, and lost. A strong mind isn't one that holds the most facts. It's one that knows when to question. This is Logos operating within you. Every time you're hurt by someone's words, ask, why did that upset me? What fear did it touch? Every time you're angry, pause. What am I defending? Truth or ego? The moment you start questioning, instead of reacting, that is the moment no one can control you. And no, practicing this doesn't have to be complicated. Each day, choose one belief you've always held about yourself, about others, about the world, and put it under the microscope. When was the last time you truly changed your mind? Or admitted you were wrong? If you can't remember, ask yourself, are you really living? Or just repeating an outdated mental script? In every conversation, instead of waiting for your turn to argue, try listening. Truly listening. To understand what's driving the other person's point. It's hard, painfully hard, because it demands you set aside your ego and take the side of truth, even when the truth doesn't flatter you. A strong mind doesn't need to win every debate. It just needs to avoid wasting itself on debates that don't matter. Like a soldier picking the right battlefield, a critical thinker chooses where their energy goes. Strength lies not in knowing everything, but in knowing what's not worth believing, not worth reacting to, and not worth holding on to. So ask yourself, of all the things you believe, how many are truly yours, and how many were just programmed into you? Remember, no one can fully control their circumstances, but you can control how you interpret them. Critical thinking doesn't make you stubborn. It makes you unmanipulable. You're not easily convinced. You're not easily triggered. You're the kind of person people don't know how to persuade, and that unsettles them. You don't need to shout to prove your strength. Just think deeply enough that your words make others fall silent. And that starts today, with the next time you ask yourself, have I really thought this through? We've just explored 8 principles for building a mind so strong, the world can't help but take notice. No need to raise your voice. No need to prove anything. Sometimes, quiet strength speaks loudest and makes others feel small without saying a word. That kind of power is born from a journey no one sees, where you stop living for approval and start living by what's right, where you realize no one's coming to save you, and that's the best thing that could ever happen, where you stop running from loneliness and finally sit down for an honest conversation with yourself. A formidable mind doesn't dominate others. It simply can't be controlled. It chooses what to think, when to stay silent, and how to act with intention. In an age where everyone's reacting, the rare few who pause to think are the ones who stand out. Surihim ko doching la sukmar. If you found this video valuable and haven't hit like yet, do it now. Leave a comment. Alaric wants to know what part of this made you stop and think. Share it with someone you care about. This might be exactly what they need. And if you're committed to building an unshakable mind, hit subscribe. There's so much more ahead, and every step is worth it. Thank you. And Alaric will see you next time.